Terrence A. Collins Jr. here, aka Mr. Inspired Mind, and somebody's got to say it. I love what Donald Trump had to say about firing NFL players. I absolutely love it. I think that was one of the greatest things that a president has ever said. So I absolutely love that Donald Trump came out and said that he used the exact language that he used. I'm going to explain why I absolutely loved it. So I saw this post, and I'm paraphrasing. It's like, Americans, you guys terrorize and enslave an entire race for 300 years, withhold them from having your same rights for another 100 years. To this day, fill 2/3 of your prison cells with them, and then get upset when they don't applaud your history. And I thought, man, that's really profound. You know, that's one way to put it, but that's a large point of the whole conversation that hasn't been had, hasn't been said. People haven't really had the conversation, and as it pertains directly to NFL players not wholeheartedly and 100% participating in the national anthem. Because here's the thing, several different things happen, and with the rise of social media and cell phones and people being able to take pictures and record, we've got more access to information and people at a record pace than we've ever had at any other point in time in history. And so as a byproduct of that, it brought a couple things to light, situations that happen that garner national attention, and a lot of people were alarmed to find out how some events unfolded. And for the most part, people of pigmentation were not alarmed at all about these events. And Colin Kaepernick had basically had enough of some of this stuff and decided he wanted to make this a conversation that we could really talk about. And some people go, well, we can have the conversation, but you don't have to disrespect the flag and, you know, boycott the anthem and, you know, everything that the country stands for. Well, for the country to become a country, the protests weren't peaceful. To separate from Great Britain, there weren't peaceful protests. It was a war to get every piece of land and state that is under American control. Was not peaceful. There was war and battles and deceit and lies and people stealing and cheating and pillaging and enslaving people and raping people. You know, so for America, number one, become America, it has a very violent past. In America, people try and hide it like it doesn't exist. So to say, well, we could have the conversation without disrespecting the flag, that's not true. Because we've never had any conversation without protest. Women's rights. White women had to protest for rights. Hundreds of years. That was never a conversation that was had until they protested. There was no peaceful protest. It was a civil war. And the ones who still consider themselves Americans won the war against the rebels. Then they allowed those rebels to build monuments and statues. And there's no other major war in history in which one side was conquered that they allowed the other side to put up monuments of the leaders of the losing side. So Kaepernick started protesting the national anthem to start the conversation, get people talking. And he came out during the offseason and said he didn't plan on protesting the anthem. But other players see that Kaepernick isn't getting an opportunity to play. So they, in turn, decide that they're going to continue it, which is their American right, because literally the First Amendment is freedom of speech. So the flag represents the right to honor or not honor the flag. Kaepernick wasn't accomplishing his goal with kneeling. The other players who kept it going this year, the only conversation that was being had is about them and the flag. So the whole crusade, the whole protest was going absolutely nowhere. Only one Caucasian player participated one time during the preseason in which he actually knelt. Some wanted to show their support by putting their hand on somebody's shoulder, which, if you're not paying attention and the media doesn't point it out, which at this point the media had basically been pointing it out for ratings and views and for clickbait. So the only conversation has been spurred by the media trying to get clicks. It hasn't been the media on either side of the conversation. They're just profiting off of the whole thing. So they've been the main one continuously driving it, because you're not gonna notice somebody putting their hand on somebody's shoulder. So most of the acts have only been for 100% purely for clickbait by the media. I hate the media for continuing the discussion about the most minute things, because the discussion hasn't been the discussion that those things are about. It's been simply about who's kind of participating. Owners were staying away from talking about the subject and the topic. The people who employs these people, they've completely stayed away from everything. But the reason why I love Donald Trump and what he had to say and his actions is because this absence of a conversation that wasn't happening at all, was really dead in the water, not going anywhere, wasn't a thing on people's radars really, turns into a national conversation overnight. Athletes coming out, coaches coming out, owners coming out, past and present commissioners coming out and saying that he is trying to divide us. So overnight, it turns into a national discussion. It was a failed campaign. No traction, accomplishing nothing. It wasn't going where it had intended to go. The person who started the campaign decided they weren't going to participate in the campaign. It was literally dead in the water. And overnight, one person accomplishes the entire objective of the campaign. So at this point, it doesn't matter if anyone kneels or doesn't kneel for the anthem. It doesn't matter if a team shows up for the anthem or doesn't show up for the anthem. None of that matters, because when Trump said what he said, how he said, the way he said it, when he said it, it sparked the entire conversation. Politicians in both parties have responded. The average Joe, who hasn't said anything publicly, has been publicly voicing their opinion on their social media network of their preference. Trump didn't give the campaign life. He gave it the platform that it truly needed to become exactly what it was intended to be in the first place. Most of what I've seen of the people who are pro what Trump said on Friday are pro what Trump said for the wrong reason. Because here's the flip side of the argument. I abstain from commenting on my preference as to whether or not people stand or don't stand, right? My preference doesn't matter. I'm entitled to my own thoughts, actions, decisions, ideas, and opinions, just like each and every person is. In terms of what people do or don't do, or how they do or don't do whatever they do, especially when it pertains to the flag and the anthem. And the reason that's the case is because that is exactly what the flag and the anthem stand for. But most of the people who have taken the anti-side of it listened to a couple voices, and those voices said that they're disrespecting the flag, which the flag actually gives them the right to acknowledge or not acknowledge the flag. So it's not possible to disrespect the flag during the national anthem. You're entitled to your right to do or not do whatever you want during the national anthem as a result of the flag and national anthem. So that basis right there is oxymoronic. When the individuals state that these actions are disrespect to our troops and our veterans, those who serve, for the flag to stand the way it does, to give these Americans the right to acknowledge or not acknowledge the flag, it's also oxymoronic, therefore, for any action they take during the national anthem or the flag to disrespect them, because they literally fought for that, number one. Number two, a lot of vets have come out and they said that they support, not the action, they said they support the right. And as a result of the president's actions, some of them have said they now support not just the right, but they support the actions because the actions are part of the rights. But these vets who went to fight a war they never wanted to fight, that they were drafted into, the Americans that were at home were getting more and more outraged at the amount of lives being lost, their friends and family being drafted, and the outcomes and results of the war. They were absolutely outraged. So what did they do? They protested, sometimes peacefully, sometimes not. And they felt so strongly about it that these veterans who never signed up to go to war, when they came home from war, many of them were literally, physically beat by Americans. So if the American people can literally, physically cause harm to the veterans coming back from fighting a war they never wanted to fight, how can those same people who beat veterans say that a peaceful protest is disrespect to veterans? It's not about them. It's about having the conversation happen that was not happening until Donald Trump came out and said exactly what he said. How's it disrespect to the veterans if the veterans admit that they're protecting the freedoms and rights and liberties of the citizens who are exercising those freedoms, rights, and liberties? When I was in school, going through my history books, it's the only country that had the excerpt in my history book about how their veterans, the veterans of the strongest, most powerful country, the veterans of the country that is the leader and protector of the free people of the world, how is it possible that those veterans had to march on the national capital and set up camp in which some of them were physically harmed while camping outside our nation's capital, just trying to get benefits? Because America honors its veterans so much that we beat them when they come back from fighting a war they don't want to participate in, and then beat them when they peacefully march in our capital and set up camp just to get benefits so they can be entitled the opportunity to live the same life that they fought and their buddies died for the rest of Americans to have. Americans love their veterans so much that the veterans get excluded from so many qualities of life due to injury and ailments from protecting people's rights, and Americans then, as a whole, struggle to provide them adequate medical aid and resources for them to have a shot to live a somewhat decent second-class life because they, a lot of times physically or mentally, are not able to live that American dream. If the cause is so disrespectful to veterans, when was the last time you went down and volunteered at the VA? You watching football and then being upset about what somebody does before the football game starts is not helping those same veterans that you're crying about. The same veterans who they had to go through a whole heck of a lot more for their breadth of a conversation in U.S. history in terms of their ability to be entitled to the liberties and freedoms that you take for granted. If you're not personally mobilizing people to take care of veterans, you're disrespecting the vets. When we can beat our vets, send them to die for us, and not give them the opportunity to live with us, that's disrespect to the vets. So if you're not personally helping the vets, you can't complain about somebody else disrespecting the vets because you're contributing to the same problem that you're accusing somebody else of contributing to if you're right. If that's what your problem is, if that's why you're pro what Trump said and anti the quote-unquote protest of the anthem, if that's how you sincerely feel, if that is how you 100% sincerely feel, then the conversation you need to be a part of is what can we do to honor the vets and show them respect? What can we do to help vets? That means that you are not a part of the the problem of people expressing their freedom of rights, but you're a problem, you're part of the problem that you're accusing these people of being of, because you're one of those people that's contributing to the continued oppression of the people who fought for the right for you to ignore them in the first place. So that means that you are now a part of the problem that you're accusing these guys of being a part of, when they're not a part of that problem. They're not a part of the same problem that you're accusing them of being a part of. What you're seeing in their cause as a problem is really your problem. It's your lack of actions and activities that's adversely affecting the conditions that our veterans have. Because it's not great for most of them. It's not fame and glory when they return. They don't make a lot of money. Their families aren't that well taken care of if they don't return from the battlefield. A lot of these guys are dying before they're legally old enough to take a drink of alcohol. What are you saying to those widows of these 20-year-old men? What are you saying to the sons and daughters of these people who have died for you to have the freedom to watch football and complain about what somebody does before the football game? You're the problem of the problem that you see. And if you're so pro these protests, why haven't the conversation been taken to the place that the aim of the protest was supposed to go to in the first place? So if you're on that side of the coin, then you're the problem that you see. Whatever problem you see with either side of this coin, you've contributed to that problem existing in the first place by you not taking enough action and you not rallying enough people to actively implement the solution. If you're not going to actively implement the solution, then you're a part of the problem because you're contributing to the continuation of the problem. So I love what Trump said, because it made the whole thing a topic of discussion. It can't be disrespect to the flag when the flag entitles you the right and opportunity to acknowledge or not acknowledge it. The solution is simple. It starts with you. You choose. What do you want the conversation to be? What do you want the conversation to turn into? All right? Now, in terms of, I know I said I love what Donald Trump said and how he said it and when he said it. Do I think it was appropriate? My first reaction is nah. None of it was right. That was my first reaction. But my second reaction is that he turned this into a conversation. He accomplished the goal of the mission of the campaign. So can I say that he was wrong? I can't say that. I can't say he was wrong. I'm not going to say he was right, because the result of it has been national conversation about this topic. The entire goal accomplished because of how and what he said. So if how and what he said could accomplish that, then I can't say he was wrong, because that would be oxymoronic. So thank you, President. As a result of your thoughts, actions, and decisions, that might have been the most presidential thing that you have done. And so for that, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you to Donald Trump for those comments. But again, Terrence A. Collins Jr., aka Mr. Inspired Mind, standing next to the flag I'm hanging up. Make sure you like, you comment, subscribe, follow the page, turn on notifications. Most importantly, I want to hear what your thoughts and opinions are about this, and about the topic, about the subject, about how we move forward, about where the conversation goes from here, about what our solutions are, and about what I said.